started. Good, how are you?
Just turn it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
On's a good
So-
start.
Speak
So
loudly.
always very exciting. The most important fun part of my job is hiring somebody and promoting somebody. It's nothing better than bringing a new officer to Atherton. Pablo was born and raised in San Jose, has a bachelor's degree in kinesiology, a veteran of the United States Army, currently serves in the California Air National Guard, and he comes to us after years of service as a Veterans Affairs police officer. So we're very happy to have him on board. And so with that, I'm going to read you your oath. I did the chief size font.
You'll have to put
Oh,
on
it's a
forward.
big one there.
Doesn't have any more words on it, though,
And
does
repeat
it?
after me. I,
I,
your name,
Pablo Tejera,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the California, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter during such time as I hold the position of police officer. Do you understand this oath and I've read to you, and do you accept the responsibilities?
yes.
Congratulations.
All right.
You folks here, if you'd like to introduce them real quickly.
Yeah, I
I
brought
know,
my,
yeah.
my family's here today.
So if you want to come on up, we'll do the traditional badge pinning. I already gave her instructions on how to do it.
Oh, good.
All right.
Daughter Anais, my son Diego, and my wife Monica.
Hi,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you for sharing your father and your husband with us.
Who's got the badge? Who's going to do it?
Anais.
When you stand on a chair.
Want to stand chair? Want me to move? I'm thinking-
Oh, and taking a picture.
Perfect. Good job. No, I'm just very grateful for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be here and be a part of the team and to work and serve in the town of Atherton. Thank you.
Right,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you so
I
much.
agree.
All the rest of our officers. So
is
lovely
fun.
to see
All
everyone.
leave now. What happens?
All right, so now we're going to move to public comment. This is the portion of the meeting reserved for items that are not on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of city council. Is there anyone, room or online, that wishes to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, so as it relates to public comment, we have received public comment about pickleball. And what we have decided, there's another part 2 conversation about pickleball in our July 15th meeting, July 15th. So we have decided to discuss all things pickleball, both the clay court conversion and ours, as part of our July meeting instead of doing a 2-parter. So we're welcome to do public comment now, but I think July 15th, the time to really, for us to get into the weeds on pickleball. So anyone, and the clay court and tennis. Does anyone want to do a quick public comment on that? So if you're here and want to speak on it. Cool. We're just blazing
Good.
through this agenda, you
Moving
guys.
on.
We're gonna be
Okay,
done
disclosure
before
of
we
ex parte communications. Anyone want to disclose any?
I have nothing to disclose.
I have
Yeah.
nothing to
Yes,
disclose.
Great. Anyone want to discuss anything in the departmental written reports?
They're very thorough.
Okay, then now it's time for the report out of closed session. Mona, would you like to update?
Yes, thank you. The council did meet in closed session today. There was no public comment. The council provided unanimous direction to staff.
Okay, now it's time for our consent items, which is items 1 through 4. Are there any issues that anyone would like to pull? Any items for discussion?
Um,
Is there any public comment on the items 1 through 4? Okay,
Just a note, Madam Mayor, there will be a correction to the June 4th minutes.
perfect. Thank you. All right, do a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items number 1 through 4.
Okay.
Seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we are opening our public hearing. The first item, number 5, is the consideration of a resolution adopting general plan updates to our safety element. So, Tom.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Tom Ford, a senior planner. As you probably know, the city or the town signed a memorandum of understanding with the County of San Mateo to do an update of the safety element. The county hired a consultant, and that consultant is with us tonight online, and she has a presentation if you'd like to see it. And her name is Tammy Seal. She's a principal at PlaceWorks, and I can introduce her right now.
Good evening. Thank you, Tom. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Tammy Seal with PlaceWorks, as Tom mentioned, and I've got a few slides to provide an overview of the project. So I'm going to work on sharing my screen and getting that going for us right now. Okay, could someone confirm that you can see the slides?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to, if at any time the slides aren't working, please just do let me know. So as mentioned, PlaceWorks has been working with the town of Atherton and with 8 other jurisdictions in San Mateo County on a collaborative approach to safety element updates. This has started with the last update of the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So we'll start with where we're headed this evening is the recommendation. So staff recommends that your city council adopt a resolution to amend the Atherton general plan to implement updates to the community safety element, open space and conservation element, and circulation element, and direct staff to file the notice of exemption. So I have a few slides tonight to go over what that all means, to provide some background on the project, why the town conducted the project, provide an overview of environmental review and agency coordination we conducted, and then go over quickly the changes to the community safety element. So as you probably know, the town has a general plan. General plans are required for all cities, towns, and counties in California, and they are the city's kind of blueprint for growth, the decisions, direct decision-making for land use and use of natural resources, and other community goals. So the safety element is a required element. It's one of a few required elements of general plans, and it's intended to identify hazards of concern, notably natural hazards, and then impacts that could result and cause harm from those hazards, and then to provide policies and actions to protect the community. So we embarked on this update to meet state requirements because those are always changing on us, and they tend to be changing the most for housing elements and safety elements. And the big part of this change was to incorporate more recent information related to climate change resilience, and evacuation. And the update of the safety element also is meant to incorporate the town's hazard mitigation plan. The town is a participant in the San Mateo County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So this update kind of weaves together multiple requirements and provides updated benefits for the community. So when we talk about some of the regulations we're trying to conform to, this slide presents a short list of those. The big one is a requirement that all communities identify impacts resulting from climate change, and then climate resilience and adaptation policies and actions to increase community resilience. There are new requirements now that direct how frequently a safety element has to be updated. It's now kind of on track with a housing element, so that development is always meant to be in lower risk areas. We now take a big approach to looking at evacuation and access residential areas have to what we call ingress and egress in multiple ways out of their neighborhoods in the event of an emergency evacuation. And we also now have a new requirement to treat extreme heat as a hazard equal to like flooding or wildfire or earthquakes, which we have been able to do with this update. So as mentioned, the primary purpose of this update was to take advantage of a collaborative effort to provide some efficiency and consistency in the approach, to share resources, to provide updated climate vulnerability information. Our team conducted a climate vulnerability assessment for the community, prepared a new technical background report, and then use that new information to recommend updates to goals, policies, and actions, and also to kind of just update the document overall to ensure that it's responsive to best practice and expectations from state agencies. And as part of the update, town staff took the lead on community outreach by introducing the project to the Planning Commission and your council when the project started in 2024, conducting public community workshops in 2024 and 2025, coordinating with Get Ready Atherton, engaging in a lot of collaboration and coordination across departments with Public Works, Building, Police, and Menlo Fire, and then offering the draft for public comment for at least 30 days, but also as available through the public hearing process in front of the Planning Commission and your council. So the project general plans and general plan elements are considered projects subject to CEQA, but fortunately we have what's called a common sense exemption, which allows for this being a program level policy document without physical change to go through a streamlined exemption process or environmental review. We do want to note that any implementation actions that might be put forward later as implementation of the element would be subject to their own and separate CEQA review. As required by the government code, we consulted with state agencies, including the California Geological Survey and the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Both agencies reviewed and cleared the element, no gaps identified. And then we were also very involved throughout the process with One Shoreline. They're a participant in the collaborative, the Safety Element Collaborative that we've had for the last couple of years. And they were very helpful with the flood mitigation information. So just we keep touching on the changes, but I'd like to just highlight what we mean when we talk about that. So the safety element has text, maps, and goals, policies, and actions. And we pretty much touched all parts of those. The bigger lift was to provide a lot more information about potential climate change impacts like severe weather, extreme heat, and drought, to update wildfire policies and flood policies, even though the town doesn't have mapped fire hazard severity zones or higher floodplain risks. We still needed to freshen those policies because those events can happen even if you don't have mapped hazard zones. We identified mapped residential areas that appear to be lacking 2 or more emergency evacuation routes. And we then just generally, as I mentioned, ensured that we had policies to respond to changing climate conditions and to anticipate those changes and to increase community resilience. Also, we added a bit more information just about emergency management and preparedness. When you update an element of the general plan, it's pretty challenging to just touch one element. Usually when you get into one, you find yourself possibly and most likely needing to update others because general plans are required to be internally consistent. So to that end, we do have minor updates to the open space and conservation element and to the circulation element to maintain that consistency across elements and within the general plan. The updates mostly are to relate to update text and to ensure that when we talk about a project in one element, we talk about it in the same way in the other one. However, in the open space and conservation element, we were able to provide some goal and policy updates to support conformance with even another new requirement for open space elements that's referred to as SB 1425, which requires open space elements to promote climate resilience and the use of natural infrastructure and open space in the climate resilience approach. And then in the circulation element, it's mostly just updating text and projects that, needed just to be a little freshened up a bit. And so that's my brief presentation. You have in your packet that the Planning Commission also reviewed and considered this and recommended that your council adopt. So back to our staff recommendation, staff recommends that your city council adopt a resolution to amend the Atherton general plan to implement updates to the community safety element, open space and conservation element, and circulation element, and direct staff to file the notice of exemption. And that, I believe, concludes our presentation.
So we'll start with questions and then we'll do public comment and then comments. So Bill.
Oh, first off, thank you for the presentation and for the work that you've done on this. I found the maps very enlightening. I was particularly interested in, you identified several areas that in the event of emergency evacuations, things were constrained, which I appreciate that we have those identified. But going through the document, I didn't see any solution to that or recommendations. So I'm not sure, what the benefit of that was. You just said we have a problem here and there's no plan to fix it.
No, they're actually part of, we would address them through our emergency operations plan.
Okay, well, I didn't see it in,
General plan element.
okay. All right, well, I look forward to seeing those.
Link to that when this gets approved, it goes online.
Okay, all right. No problem.
Part 2, chapter 2. All right, Elizabeth had a question.
Thank you for the presentation and thanks staff for all the great graphics and the enlarged maps for us. I appreciate that. So my question is, has any of this information been sent to, I guess, the most impacted residents who maybe up on Walsh Road because of the fire or the dam, inundation, to give them advanced warning or advanced knowledge about this?
I would have to say probably no. We did do a workshop on November 11th here in this room. It wasn't heavily attended, but there was some interest both in person and online. The primary people that showed up were from ADAPT, but they now call themselves Get Ready Atherton.
Right.
So I think once it's adopted, we can make sure that people know about it and, and disseminate the information.
It's kind of staggering to see it in a graphic way. They are really the most at risk. That's more discussion. That was my question, but I have more comments later.
Eric, did you have your
No
hand up?
questions. Thank you.
I had a question. If in adopting this, is there any impact to people's insurance now that this is all written down, public document, or are we not? I mean, it is what it is. I'm just curious. Likely.
I can.
Maybe Brittany has,
Okay.
I don't have an answer
I
for that.
couldn't get flood insurance last year.
I revealed myself, Town Planner Brittany Bendix, jumping in on this. Not immediately that we're aware of. However, there was some delay in the safety element process where we were waiting for the release of the updated fire hazard maps. None of Atherton was included in the severe hazard area. But in part of the discussions that we were having with PlaceWorks and then the larger group of jurisdictions was this relationship to development and insurance and then the designation of higher fire severity. So I don't know, Tammy, if you have any insight on where that went for the jurisdictions that are within that zone. Certainly because Atherton doesn't have that category, it does make development easier, but we are kind of right up against it. So it's worth knowing, I think, what other jurisdictions are going through.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's got a multi-part answer, so we can only answer part of it tonight. And excuse me. And as we know, like the cities don't have direct control over the insurance companies, but what you can do, what the town can do is what you're doing tonight with the safety element is considering an update that's responsive to the most current hazards and potential risks. And we've put forward our recommended policies that reduce those risks. And as Town Planner Brittany said, that to ensure that new development is done in accordance with the most recent building code, the fire code, the wildland urban interface code, and your safety element policies. And the policies do direct critical facilities and development out of high-risk areas and provide guidance for how to reduce on-site risk. So while we can't guarantee that the insurance rates might change as a result of this, it is your town doing what you can to promote policies that reduce risk. This coupled with the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan and your other emergency planning documents are what the best thing you can be doing to manage hazard impacts and risks.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions? Okay, let's open public comment. Okay, all right, come back for comments. Elizabeth, you said you had a comment.
Thank you. I know the fire district some time ago, when I was a liaison, they would go up Walsh Road and they had a brochure about fire dangers and what to do and how to respond and things like that. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I really think that we need to outreach again to our residents in these high-risk areas. And obviously the Bear Gulch area for landslide and the dam inundation. Well, a lot of Atherton, if the dam breaks, we're going to be affected. But I just think that with all of this fresh in our minds, we should consider some kind of summary, a little pamphlet or something that we can send to our residents, even townwide. Good idea, because we've got so many new residents also in town building to code. So safety of our residents is first and foremost in my mind, and seeing potential disasters is really kind of scary.
We'll certainly do outreach connected with it.
Thank you.
All right,
Question?
We should conduct additional outreach, and my response was we will certainly do outreach connected with the adoption of this.
got a lot of maps now that.
Yeah, the maps are great.
All right, anyone else have any comments?
I appreciate the thoroughness of the report, and it does set up an automatic framework for discussion with the there might also be something in the builders or the developers that we could give them a little more sensitivity to it, so they're actually baking that into their planning of what they're going to be building. So we can say, by the way, make sure that you're aware of this. That might be something we look at too. That's it.
Okay.
But thank you for the report.
Really got anything?
No, I said my piece.
Okay, cool.
Ready?
Yeah, anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'd like to recommend that the city council adopt a resolution to amend the Atherton general plan to implement updates to the community safety element, the open space and conservation element, the circulation element, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption with the San Mateo County Clerk to forward the adopted community safety element to the California Office of Emergency Services and other required state agencies.
I'll second it.
Good job.
Oh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we are moving on to our next public hearing, which is talking about the Town of Atherton vacancies, recruitment and retention efforts.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. So tonight's public hearing is required under Government Code Section 3502.3, which was enacted through Assembly Bill 2561. So this law requires that public agencies present an annual report on job vacancies, as well as any recruitment and retention efforts prior to adopting the final budget. The purpose of the item is to provide some transparency around our staffing levels, highlight any challenges that we might have in our hiring process, and then outline some steps that we're taking. to attract talent and retain qualified members of our staff. So we have 43 authorized personnel, and right now we have 3 vacancies, and there are candidates in the pipeline for each of those. One of them is a dispatcher for the police department. There's a management analyst for the police department and a management in the public works department. All those recruitments have been conducted, and we have some candidates in the pipeline at this time. Aside from that, we are at approximately a 94% staffing level, which is important because that doesn't put us past the threshold of having a 20% vacancy rate. And the police department continue to do ongoing recruitment efforts for both sworn and non-sworn positions. The chief and the commander can talk a little bit more about that if you guys have some specific questions. And I know the APOA is in attendance, and they do have some planned comments that they'd like to make to council about that. As far as our recruitment and our retention efforts, the town does conduct surveys for salary and compensation and classification around our labor negotiations, which will be taking place next July. We're going to start those conversations pretty soon with the APOA. Otherwise, we work on a variety of wellness activities, and I think we're pretty familiar with some of the benefits and practices that we take for our staff to engage them. The report does outline a little bit of our recruitment and retention practices. We do some professional outreach through some organizations like MMANC. We have a competitive hiring practice. We post our jobs pretty broadly in terms of using some online resources and obviously word of mouth. In 25 and 26, the town completed 3 non-police department hiring processes, and those went pretty well, although we did have an unexpected resignation in our public works department. So this hearing is informational only. If there are any conversations about policy or budget, that would have to be an adjustment that would be made through our budget process for this coming fiscal year. With that, I conclude my presentation. I'm open to any questions, but again, I know our APOA is in attendance and they would like to make some comments as well.
Okay, well, before we take your comment, do you guys have any questions?
I have no question.
I've got
I have a
just a couple quick questions.
Yeah, great.
First of all, do we also work on what our estimated or projected turnover would be, or changes in staff based on retirements or promotions or things like that? Do we look at that?
George can probably talk a little bit about that, what we do in the budget, but we have looked at how long we retain employees. And actually the APOA has conducted a little bit of information on that. Our average annual police officer, I think, is around 10 years over the last multiple years, probably over a decade or so. And so we have talked about succession planning and how we're going to account for that in turnover.
All right. And do you have a sense of the length of time it takes to go through the process for different requirements of staff?
I could give you some insight on that from the non-police side of things. I mean, for the most part, we're going to post a job and run that recruitment for at least 30 to 60 days. Typically, right after that, we're going to conduct our panel, which is done within a few weeks. And then we try to hone in on the finalist candidates a week or 2 after that. So I would say from the time that we post a job to actually extending an offer letter, we're looking at around 3 months. Police department recruitments are a little more challenging, I think, given that even once they've identified their candidates that they like, they have a very thorough background check process, which can take another 30 days from the time that they narrow their list down to a candidate. So that would probably run about 4 months or longer. And that doesn't include folks like our newly sworn in officer who have to then go through the academy and then do some time where he's shadowing other officers before he's up and fully active.
Okay. All right. You and I might be able to talk offline on some ideas on how to get sort of a pre-existing candidate pools for certain categories of positions that we could know who's there and then cut that time to hire down dramatically. The key to good recruiting obviously is to make sure you know who's out there and talk to them first.
Yeah, for sure.
So
there's, with a little background in this in private, there's a term like dirty pool, right? In corporate America, it's very common to contact other offices and other employers, but you don't see that happen too much in municipal agencies, but for sure, I'm open to hearing any suggestions you have.
Those are the organizations you mentioned, like MMANC, or those are networks that staff participate in. Right. And so the directors and Anthony and others are very keenly aware of who's looking to move, who's looking to.
Good. All right.
Those sorts of things.
I just want to make sure we're doing preemptive. That length of time to hire is what I used to spend my whole career on, reducing that.
Yeah, I mean, with a smaller agency, sometimes we're competing with, we have other challenges to
Right.
attract certain talent.
We can talk about that.
But
too.
yeah, I'm open to hearing what you, thank you.
That's it.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, you guys wanna, I don't know, someone, I've told there's public comment from our unions.
Good evening, council.
Oh.
I'm Sergeant David Metzger, the Police Officers Association's president. I've prepared some information for you that we'd like to express. The Atherton Police Officers Association appreciates the opportunity provided under AB 2561 to offer comments regarding the town's annual staffing report. While the town may not currently meet the standards that meet the statutory vacancy thresholds requiring additional reporting, it is important to recognize that those thresholds are based upon budgeted staffing levels and do not necessarily reflect the Atherton Police Department's actual operational needs. In practice, the department has historically relied upon overtime to address staffing shortages and meet service demands. Current budgeted staffing levels do not always account for the operational realities and service expectations placed upon the department. In response to concerns regarding overtime expenditures, employees have been subject to significant restrictions on utilizing accrued vacation leave, and the department has operated without filling a detective's position and a traffic position in order to maintain basic patrol operations. As a result, services to the community have been reduced while officers' ability to maintain reasonable work-life balance has been increasingly challenged, contributing to stress, fatigue, and declining morale. Investigations and traffic enforcement have consistently been the highest public safety priorities identified by both the residents and town administration and leadership. These functions are not ancillary services. They represent core community expectations and are fundamental components of the high level of service Atherton residents have historically expected from their police department. As the council can appreciate, the needs of every community evolve over time, and Atherton residents rightly expect a modern, full-service police department. Accordingly, the APOA hopes that the town will continue to evaluate staffing levels, operational demands, and long service expectations in order to restore and enhance services, maintain the highest standards of professionalism, and account for the realities of a modern workforce. As a small agency, current staffing levels do not adequately account for the possibility that employees may experience injuries or illnesses, require family leave, pursue professional development opportunities, or otherwise become temporarily unavailable. At a time when attracting experienced candidates has become increasingly challenging in the days of competitive law enforcement marketing, staffing considerations must also account for the extensive amount of time required to hire and train new employees to operate independently, typically more than 12 months and often closer to 18 months. The APOA appreciates the opportunity to share the perspective of the employees who serve on the front lines of public safety every day. While staffing challenges remain and certain specialized assignments continue to go unfilled, we are committed to working constructively with the town leadership to address these issues and to ensure the department remains capable of meeting the expectations of the community. We hope this annual process provides a meaningful opportunity for open dialogue and serves as the foundation for a stronger partnership between the POA and the town as we work together to address the realities facing modern-day law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any comments, or is there any additional public comment?
No, I see none online. And again, this is informational, so you don't have to
Okay,
take any
so-
action.
Don't have to take any action, so we're good. So we'll move on to the next item, which,
Budget.
yeah,
Say good?
yeah, we're moving on to 7, guys. Time to talk budget. So George, would you like to introduce this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This item adopts the fiscal year 26-27 budget through 5 independent resolutions, which you may approve in one single motion at the conclusion of the staff report and public hearing. The first is the operating and capital improvement budget resolution. The second is the unrepresented salary and benefit resolution. The third is the fiscal year 26-27 salary and classification schedule. That's what we actually have to send to CalPERS. The GAN appropriations limit resolution, and then the master fee schedule amendments. The budget reflects the 4 council and audit and finance committee study sessions and meetings and incorporates direction from those meetings. General fund revenues are projected at 26.2 million against expenditures of 23.4 million. A single year operating surplus of 2.79 million before all the below the line items, with a projected year-end fund balance of 11.7, which is inclusive of the town's reserves requirement. Property taxes remain about 70% of our general fund revenue. ERAF is budgeted about 2.75, which you haven't received yet for the next year. But for last year's ERAF, the council directed that the Audit and Finance Committee come back with some recommendations to the council, which they'll undertake at their next meeting. The town's most vulnerable revenue line remains the property tax in lieu of VLF. As you know, there's a deal in the works at the state level. Hopefully, we'll get about 80% of what's owed for the prior years, but there is no deal for the pending out years. That's roughly a 1.76 million shortfall to the town, which we'll hopefully get about 80% of. On the capital side, the budget transfers 4.34 million from the general fund to the CIP for capital projects and 250,000 for facility replacement, drawing on unallocated reserves. Following the CIP study sessions, the council removed the Selby Bicycle Lane project and added 4 additional projects: the Middlefield Road pedestrian improvement design, the El Camino Real Atherton Avenue intersection study, the drainage master plan update, and the Hobart Palmer Park asphalt pathway repairs. Total CIP expenditures are 5.16 million across the town's master plan programs. The town meets its 30% reserve requirements, 7.0 million, and carries a projected unallocated reserve of about 4.6. That includes ERAF from the prior year. The GAN limit is set at 19.4 million, which the town is in compliance with, and the master fee schedule applies a 2.5% CPI escalator in most fees, along with several new or amended planning and building fees. And we also reduced to 0 for those listening online for the new alarm permit renewals and new alarm system permits. And that concludes the presentation. Our Assistant City Manager, Finance Director is online and would be happy to answer any questions the council may have, although he keeps his fingers crossed that there are no detailed questions.
All right. Had many meetings on this. Does anyone have any bonus questions?
Bonus questions.
Bonus questions. I'm just saying, this is our 5th meeting about this, so
There are bonuses.
no pressure. Don't ask any questions, but you can. Anyone?
Tennis fund is in this. Are we going to carve that portion out?
So we're going to talk about play court pickleball
Next
at our
meeting.
July 15th meeting as a
But
large.
it's part of this budget.
You're adopting the tennis fund as it's presented
Just
within the
right
budget.
there.
And then if
Okay.
you need to make amendments based on council direction, you can do so.
Many years we make amendments the
So I-
next one.
I have a comment.
Comments. Does anyone have questions?
Nope, I've studied this one a lot.
All right, good job. Okay, any public comment for this item?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, great. Now Elizabeth had a comment.
So my comment is, I applaud staff, our finance director, Robert Barone III, numbers we're looking at and the hard work he's put in it. And our decision to remove the Selby Lane bike lanes and reallocate that to infrastructure of the safety of Atherton Avenue and Fair Oaks light signaling and Selby Lane El Camino signaling shows that this council is really focused on making our town safer for our residents. We're putting our funds into the infrastructure and improving our streets and drainage problems that our residents have been telling us that need to be fixed. So I applaud the city manager, I applaud our council members for making those decisions. And I think this is an excellent budget.
Else?
It's breakthrough these days, and that's it's not a deficit budget, which is great.
Oh, I'm so proud of us.
Yeah.
Compared to our neighbors.
Yeah. Okay, do we
I'd like to
have?
make a motion that, let's see, all the things we have to approve.
You want to read them off?
Yeah,
Councilmember?
yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we
We have to do them individually.
the Atherton.
I just
Budget?
want to
Wait.
confirm no public comment on this.
We did,
Yeah.
as their
Online.
new,
There's none
None
online.
online.
And do you
Okay.
want Robert to get on and talk to you? Okay.
Do a little
So,
PowerPoint
we
presentation.
need
All
to
right,
do-
so
do we
we're going
need
to
to-
adopt the fiscal year
Just think.
26, 27 budget. Okay, we're going to adopt the salaries and benefit plans for the unrepresented staff. We have a resolution that we're approving for the city council, town of Atherton, for fiscal year 26, 27 salary schedules, classifications. We are going to pass the resolution for the town to establish an appropriation levels for fiscal year 26, 27 pursuant to Article 8B of the California Constitution. And we are going to pass a resolution for the town of Atherton approve the fee resolution schedule, which was attached at the end document. Second.
Gonna second it?
Okay,
Go ahead, you can second it.
All right, second.
Right.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah. I mean,
Thank you.
sure.
I
I'll
did a
bring it
nice
down.
job to our finance staff and for the rest of the staff for helping put all that together.
That was a lot of work that they.
Well,
They worked all
Very
year
much.
on
there were a
this.
few things that we had discussed that needed to have corrections, okay? Let's
They're-
not
they're-
go overboard.
Phil, there's Robert Barone. Hi, I see him.
Wait, Robert, don't
Hi,
listen to him.
Robert.
Don't get too cocky, Robert. Thank you. Okay, so now we are closing the public hearing and we're starting the regular agenda. First item is consideration of applicants to all of our town committees and the planning commission.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is our annual appointment to our committees and commissions that have vacancies. I'll quickly review the committees and commissions that have vacancies, review applicants that we have. Some are in person. I think a few others are online. And then with that, we can have the discussion about appointments. And I'm sure a few of them are actually ready to make their remarks. So on the Audit and Finance Committee, we have one vacancy to fill. It's for a term that's expiring. So the appointment would be a 4-year term that wouldn't expire until June 30, 2030. There are 2 vacancies on the Environmental Programs Committee, but we only have one applicant. So one of them's for a midterm vacancy, and I believe the candidate who's in person today is Mr. Kwan. And I think he's shared that he'd be most open to that midterm spot that expires in 2028, although you might be able to convince him to apply for the 4-year spot while he's here in person. We have,
How wonderful it is.
we've got 2 terms that are expiring for the Park and Recreation Committee for the regular seats. That would be appointed for a term that doesn't expire until 2030, and then 1 foundation seat for the term that expires in 2028. And then lastly, we have 1 opening on the Planning Commission for a term that would be going until June 30th, 2030, and that candidate's an incumbent. And most of the others are incumbents with the exception of Mr. Kwan. So with that, if you'd like, we can look at the Audit and Finance first. We did have Ann Walker apply, but when she learned that Mr. Hill was interested, she gracefully bowed out. And so Mr. Hill would be the only candidate up for appointment at this time.
Okay, so we have basically no hard
No
decisions to
extras.
make tonight because there's only,
The only question is 2 or 4 years.
yeah, all right.
Mr. Kwan.
I mean, I'm open to both, but I think I just want to start slow and make sure I don't over.
Smart.
Good, so we'll put you on the 4-year and you can decide halfway
And then
through.
you'll run for city
No, no,
council.
no.
You can
Don't
always
strong
quit. You
arm
can
him,
always
Eric.
quit.
You're such a strong
Okay.
arm.
Okay, well,
Let's do it as a group.
chosen 2. So,
Is 4 okay, really? I mean, you can
No,
always change your mind in the
he
middle.
said 2.
said
He said 2.
Let's
2,
not,
okay.
we're
I was
just
trying-
Put
excited
4
he's
in his
here.
mouth.
And all of the applicants were told that they may answer questions from council, so they're ready if you'd like. Otherwise, you can make the appointments in one motion if that works for you as well.
yeah.
So
All right.
that's what we should
Okay.
do.
I think, does
I'm-
anyone have any questions or should we just go straight to a
No,
motion?
I'd like to make a
Public comment, do you?
Oh, well, do we take public comment on? Okay, public comment, anyone? Want to comment? Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that as it's 1 for 1, except for where we have 2 and 1 and environmental programs that we appoint the people that have applied. We thank them for applying, and that would be for all the committees.
And is that Mr. Kwan for the midterm?
And
appointment?
Mr. Kwan would be for
Yes.
the 2-year
Yes.
term only, with his choice to change 2 years.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Right. Anybody second
I
it?
think.
I'll second.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for raising your
Congratulations.
hands to
Okay.
be
Next,
on
we got
these
mosquitoes.
committees.
Mosquitoes.
For those
All
of you just,
right.
for those of you who just got appointed, there is no pay raise on these positions.
Yeah.
right?
No.
No, we're doubling their
And there's-
pay,
there's nothing-
actually.
All right.
So, okay,
mosquitoes.
now item 9 is appointing a representative to the Mosquito and Vector Control County.
Yes,
There-
so we had a midterm vacancy for this district appointment. We announced it and we recruited briefly, but we were alerted to it when we had an applicant, Mr. Alan Martin, who is also here in person and would love an opportunity to introduce himself to the council.
Welcome.
I'm Alan Martin. My wife and I have resided at 62 Selby since 1997. I thought I should thank you for the appointment and also give you some assurance that I'm minimally qualified to do this since I have experience in entomology. I grew up in San Carlos. I graduated from Carlmont High School, co-valedictorian of graduating class, student body president. I should add that my wife Donna in the pink there was Miss San Carlos in 1963.
You didn't say your date, so this isn't fair.
I spent 6 years at Stanford. I have an undergraduate degree in mathematics and economics. I have an MBA in finance and operations research. We moved to New York in 1969, where I began a 25-year career running a major division for a New York bank. That division was responsible for global retirement services, employed roughly 2,000 people, and generated $140 million pre-tax net. I began my second career, the last 25 years, largely advising some of the largest and most successful public pension plans in the country, including San Bernardino County, Ventura County, City and County of San Francisco, City of Seattle, Arizona Employee Retirement System, Arizona Public Safety System, and the New Mexico Teachers, an aggregate of about $140 billion. I hope to apply the expertise I learned both in financial and oversight. Dealing with public boards was my life. I've made lots of presentations to public pension plan boards, so I'm very familiar with the rules and guidelines, and hope to serve the city of Atherton and be happy to answer any questions.
So much.
Oh, Bill's got a question.
So I noticed that, as you pointed out, you have a lot of experience in public pension plans. So you are welcome, even though if you're not on the finance committee, to attend the finance committee meetings. Because
I would
that's one
enjoy
of our
that.
biggest issues is the pensions and things like that. Because when I looked at your resume, I thought, why aren't you applying for the finance committee? Although Mr. Hill does a terrific job.
Be happy to sit
But
in.
we'd love to have you at least as a volunteer if you have the time.
Happy to do that.
So Alan's name came to me from a fellow council member, Ron Collins, in San Carlos. He calls me up and he says, I don't know where Mason has been. He hasn't been coming to our meetings. Do you know anything? And he's our current, but he's since resigned. But so he told me about Mr. Sorry, Alan.
Yes.
Yeah, I got mixed up. Anyway, and so called him up, talked to him, and fabulous. And, I think it's really wonderful that you serve.
Well, I've retired. None of my clients wanted me to retire. They still call me. They just don't pay me anymore.
Right. So you need to be busy.
I-
Yeah.
That's
And
what we
maybe
pay
you'll
too.
figure out what Google is doing, releasing 400 million mosquitoes. They're
Neutered.
neutered,
Yeah.
neutered mosquitoes.
And I
think
have
they
a
call it
meeting
sterilized,
with Mr.
yeah.
Arrow tomorrow to go over.
Okay, all right, great.
So thank you very much.
So
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank you for applying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, please keep us informed if we need
I mean,
help you
the
with.
Mosquito and Vector Control District has a lot of amazing free services for residents.
They
that
do. They
Very
do. All
few
you do
people
is call
taking
them.
advantage of.
They come
but-
out.
Does anyone want to make public comment? Does anyone have any public comment out?
Put it out there, nothing.
Nothing. Okay, great.
I'd make a motion to approve Mr. Martin to the mosquito vector district.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now moving on to the big items on the agenda. Item 10, we are talking about our library parking and the Dinkelspiel Station Lane pedestrian pathway. That Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm just waiting to get share permission so I can put something on the screen. With me tonight, we have Gabriela Ruiz, who's our associate engineer, and Amit Kotari with TJKM, who is with TJKM, who helped us with the study. And do I have capacity?
Going to follow the charts that you've given us, Robert?
One more time?
You're going to follow the charts you've given us?
It should.
Okay, good, because I can't see you.
Okay, it should also be on the screen in front of you. So in January of this year, the town, the council approved a contract with TJKM to do a few studies for us, including an analysis of the parking here at the town center, with the goal of assessing the demand that we have and how we can develop strategies and solutions to improve availability, as well as to take a look at the at Dinkelspiel Station Lane and see how we can provide a safe and accessible pedestrian facility to go from the town center towards the park. And so I'm going to first go over the parking analysis, and then we'll get into the walkway. So basically, starting off, taking a look at how many spots we have here at the town center. And so as we look at that, there's a total of 98, including 3 motorcycle stalls, the curbside pickup at the library. We have 4 EV charging stations, several accessible stalls, and then about 84 regular stalls here at the town center. We conducted surveys to find out how many folks commute and park regularly versus taking other means to get to work, and that included coordination with the library as well as the cafe to understand how many folks are coming in and out, and trying to look at what the busiest times of day are with regards to activity. And so the busiest times really are midday, where we call it the mid-morning to early afternoon, where we have library programs and large patronage at the cafe. There was an assessment of the employees and how many folks are here on a regular basis. And so we have about 35 staff, including the library, that are here on a daily basis. There are others that rotate in and out. And then we also have our consultants, including the planning department, but they're here only 2 days a week, which actually corresponds with a couple of the heavy days at the library. So with that, there was actual counts in terms of coming out and taking a look. And so over 3 days, there was a look at how many folks are coming into the town center and parking. And basically what we found out is that we are peaking out really at 90% of the capacity, so we do get full. And so the assessment also included taking a look at, what types of stalls are being used and where we peak out. And again, the peak really tends to be starting around 10 o'clock going into the noon hour and 1 o'clock, which is that, again, heavy programmatic time at the library. In addition to taking a look at parking here at the town center itself, the beige area denotes the streets that were evaluated with regards to parking. And overall, the occupancy rate on the adjacent streets in the town center, now given that we have the permit parking program, we're really not maxing out the street parking right now. So it's the effects of I'm going to say the permit parking program that the council adopted is really evident in terms of it reducing the impact on the neighboring streets, and it really hasn't spilled over too far out from the two streets that we have the permit parking program on. And so in the report and throughout, like I said, there's an hourly count of how many spots are taken on during those days that the assessments were, and overall what we found is that the overall usage of the streets was not very high. That being said, we are pretty much maxed out, and so the consultant looked at how we can expand parking here at the town center. Overall, there's the ability to improve the parking lot and add approximately 17 spaces, which is pretty good.
I wanted to make sure everyone noticed you as a
Which in essence is almost a 20%, almost a 20% increase in terms of the spots. You didn't spill any water or anything up there, I hope.
It's empty glass. We're good. We're okay. It was empty. Okay.
Okay. So the largest area where parking is available to be constructed is in the mulch area between the existing parking and the corporation yard. Approximately 11 stalls can fit there. And then by reducing the width of parking in certain spots from 9 feet to about 8.5 feet, still considered a standard size stall. They're just not overly generous. We can fit one additional stall close to the Station Museum. We can fit another additional stall right in front of the Civic Court, as well as there's a tree that we removed on the side across from the library that can be paved and can be turned into an additional spot, as well as an additional motorcycle spot or a bicycle spot. So that's on the north side of the campus. And looking at the south side, there's the fence area along the driveway. There are a few trees there, but in between the trees, we can fit a couple of stalls by surfacing that area. And then there is the additional planter area that is right at the end by Ashfield Road that people have tended to drive and park on our landscaping. And we've now protected that with some wood barrier to reduce the likelihood of people damaging our landscaping. That being said, we can improve that area to actually turn it into a parking stall. We do need to note that there are a few utility vaults there that we'll have to deal with as we do that. And so additional things that we can look at in the future are to look at how we might be able to shift some of the demand potentially from the library, either by shifting some programs to the park if feasible, maybe adjusting a couple of the hours instead of having an event at 10 or 11 o'clock, maybe shifting that to 2 o'clock so that you kind of spread things out just a little bit. And then trying to incentivize shifting over in terms of modes of transportation. Unfortunately, transit service isn't very easy here at the town center, but there is certainly encouragement, particularly when there are larger programs to encourage carpooling, flexing. And when we hold events here at the town center, sometimes we have a shuttle service between here and the park. And then and the next item on this is trying to figure out a pathway to provide for pedestrians and encourage alternate modes of transportation from between here and the park to facilitate parking at the park. And so really what we're recommending at this point in time is to try and implement the improvements to increase the surface parking here, taking another look in about 6 to 8 months after those improvements are made to see how demand has changed and whether or not we want to take additional steps, such as working with the library in terms of shifting programming. And so with that, I'll stop on the parking, allow for council questions. We have our consultant to meet here to answer any specific details on how counts were taken and the individual recommendations. Then you can take public comment and discuss.
Okay, do we have?
Robert, this is very thorough report. Lot of information. Graphs, a lot of numbers and.
I tried to simplify that in the report,
No, I know,
but
I know, but you do it really
I think that we've all experienced the issues here.
Question
Yeah.
is, what is the lowest cost bang or buck? More parking without doing all kinds of machinations of edging knitting. You mentioned that you get 11 spots in Mulch area.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like the
That's going to get you the most spots. We also have that one tree that we removed across from the library that right now it's basically dead vegetation space that we could just clear that and pave that. The others on the north side are simply striping modification. So it's basically seal coating and restriping the lot. And so overall, all of the items, I think the estimate was about $85,000 to do it all. The one spot that's, I guess, of the most concern is you all right, sir?
85,000.
really good at the height.
I'm going to say is concern about those utility vaults, and we can have a conversation early on with the utility owners to see how difficult to make sure that they're traffic rated and what it would take to make them traffic rated if they're not.
Is that a particularly expensive change?
One
She's
spot.
concerned.
So it's like you get one spot for that. Oh, there's a Fulton.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Amit Kothari, TJKM Transportation Consultants, and I'm very pleased to be here. That was a great question. What can we do with the least expense? And I'm pleased to share that this is the least expensive option. For example, if we had to expand the parking lot, then we are looking at grading, paving, lighting, drainage issues. So there are multiple other issues that come in. Here, we don't have to worry about any of those issues. And that's why the cost is less than $5,000 per space, which is really a good benefit, a good investment compared to the benefit they will achieve. Thank you.
I've got one.
Bill, then Eric.
So when you're shrinking a couple of the sites, I've heard from some residents that are concerned about, space between pull in, there's SUVs. You have to get your passengers out before you pull in. It's about 15 pounds, so you out of the car. I mean, how much shrinkage? I know you said just going to be shrinkage. minimum
So
shrinkage.
right now, the spots are approximately 9 feet wide.
Yeah.
What we're talking about in those few areas is to shrink them by about 6 inches. So we'll go from 9 feet to 8.5, right? Is it 8.5 or 8?
That is correct. In a couple of places, we'll go down to 8.5. So we'll we'll shave about 6 inches. And then in one place, we'll be still keeping at 9 feet. I'm sorry, 9 feet.
Yeah.
Because those spaces are wider.
What's the standard compact spot size?
8. Sometimes it goes down. Yeah.
And
goes down
label
to
them
8.
compact.
Yeah, but these will be
so
bigger than compact.
These are bigger than compact. Compact stalls are 8, and your regular stalls vary between 8 and 9 feet wide. The other additional impact, change between regular and compact is really depth, and we're not changing the depth of the stalls. So,
The cars though that come here, SUVs.
yeah,
All right,
Yeah.
and so how wide is an SUV that also plus the amount of space that somebody to get out?
so if you're not interested in reducing the width of spots, that really is only the two locations closest to the train station and in front of the Civic Court is where that restriping would gain us those spots.
But your
We-
standard SUV though is only like 6.5
How
feet
many
wide.
spots do we gain?
No,
Huh?
I'm just passing on the
So-
comments that I got.
Yeah, right,
Okay,
right, right.
so I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen. Well, you can look at the screen in front of you. The closest to the train station, restriping between the median island and the station building would gain us 1 spot. If you didn't want to do that, we don't have to restripe that area. In front of the Civic Court, similarly, that would have been a reduction in width from 9 to about 8.5. And that would gain us 1 spot. I do want to say that we do want to restripe that section that's directly across from the Civic Court as we do the paving of the mulch area to provide for a crossing of the parking lot from the trackside where there's kind of a pedestrian pathway to bring them into the Civic Court and hopefully discourage people from walking in the middle of the driveway if we can.
So follow up on my question then. So what you're saying is possibly we'll get 2 spots but definitely we'll get just 2 spots by restriping it, which is causing concerns by several people.
Yeah.
And then as Elizabeth asked, is there a cost associated with the electrical thing? Do we have to do anything other than?
Well, I think the overall estimate of about 85,000 includes doing stuff over there. And so for the 1 more spot. So that is probably the most expensive spot to gain. And so if you want to leave that off for now, certainly what I can say is that if we approve adding the 11 spots, putting in that crossing, the 1 spot across from the library, we're still the recommendation is to come back afterwards and do another analysis after people have gotten accustomed to it to see how we're doing in terms of parking. You can always say we want to do those other items after.
So the 1 spot across from the library, that's the motorcycle area?
So there was a oak tree there that we had to take down.
Yeah.
And so that's right next to the fire hydrant. And so the width there is sufficient to accommodate both a regular spot as well as a motorcycle stall.
Okay.
And the motorcycle stall would be close to the hydrant so that the car would be a little bit away.
And Eric had questions.
Yeah, I was thinking more about how much parking is lost when this is being set up and how we coordinate the programs to make it so that there's not a spill of parking all over the place while we're restriping or we're doing the 11 spots. So how would that be in consideration of how you're doing it?
Well,
If
we
lose
certainly
parking in the
say we're
front-
going to design it. We're going to figure out exactly the best way to do it. So right now, those 11 spots in essence are occupied by the contractor that's doing the children's garden. And so it's currently fenced off. People aren't using it. There is going to be additional activity, but I think the activity actually is going to impact our operations in terms of getting in and out of the courtyard more than it's going to affect the general public when we do that paving work.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's a consideration because if we come up with a good idea and then it's a month of really bad ideas, it won't come out very well.
I would say construction is disruptive. And so we're not going to say that there's not going to be an impact, but we would do our best to accommodate the things that we know.
Right.
Eric had questions and then Elizabeth has.
I have 2 questions. What's the concern about restriping? going to be with change, but if you're recommending make them smaller that can handle and park there, going to be recommending.
I'm going to say there's still going to be standard stalls. They're not going to be super tiny, but to the council member's point, some people have larger cars and pulling out kids from the back seat, opening the doors.
Would we be resizing all of the spaces?
The resizing is the potential are the spaces closest to the station building and in front of Civic Court.
Okay, and you get one new place, but
Yeah.
that's just,
So
that's just a number, that's not all the spaces, that's just a every size.
those whole sections have to be resized to add the
Sections that
space.
you've identified where
Yes.
there's one space.
Yeah.
But the sections where there isn't a space, those aren't being resized.
That's correct.
Correct.
In the 11, getting
It-
those 11 new and all
Yeah,
of that
so
will
I'm
be.
going to say there are going to be some adjustments to accommodate, to get that walkway in. But that's going to be worked in with those 11 spots.
And
So-
my second question was really a follow-up to what I asked, which she was asking about that one space over here where you have to move the facility.
We would, I'm not saying, we're not going to move it. It's just a matter of making sure that it is traffic rated so that cars can park on top of it
Protect.
without a problem. And so if it is not traffic rated, this is a conversation we need to have with the utility owner, which are AT&T and PG&E, to make sure that a car can park on it. They're going to say, they may say, well, we don't want your car to park on it because we want to access it. So that there's that consideration as well.
So that's a conversation
That's a
that you need to
conversation to
have,
have.
but it's not really a significant cost issue.
Unless we have to change out the lid and frame to make it traffic rated, which we would find out after that conversation. But again, you can certainly phase the improvements and say that do this, and we can design everything and later on implement something if we find that we need to add the three spots or so.
So keeping it a question, have you ever considered doing the restriping at night after hours? That's what the CHP does. Not CHP.
Like I said,
the-
we can certainly make accommodations to do alternate hours, allowing weekend work and other things. And that's a conversation that we're happy to have once we know exactly what we're doing.
So I have one really quick. So my understanding is the most disruptive option here would be restriping in terms of continuous access to the parking lot, or is it the adding?
I'm going to say the most physical construction is really going to be the digging out and paving, right? So that's going to be construction equipment and activity. But if you look at where those 11 spots are, they're off to the side.
Right, that's why it seems
And
like we
so
could
I'm
work
not going
around
to,
it.
there is going to be some disruption and we can figure out the optimal times to do it. I don't think we want really a lot of night work. The restriping would likely require a seal coat to cover up the existing striping, in which case we would actually have to close the parking area for a couple of days so that it gets seal coated, it dries, and then we can paint it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that is disruptive. We're going to lose it for a couple of days, but we can figure out whether it's best to do that over a weekend or on other low volume days. I don't know if you recall, we did the restriping at the park and we closed off segments of the lot at a time to do that.
Couldn't you do that here? I mean, like you could put in the 11 spaces first, so there's more
Yeah.
spaces, and then you could do the restriping in each of the areas separately.
Yeah, the more you segregate it, the more you're going to pay. I mean, you're going to pay a little bit more because the seal coat person is coming out twice. The striping person is coming out twice. But I mean, for us to I think we're going to be looking at trying to minimize all of the impacts. But if you're saying, if you desire to segment the work and do the restriping of everything later, that's going to be separate anyway.
Okay. All right, Bill had a question.
I understood from discussions with the city manager that we some parallel spots.
That's on
Mentioned
the
On the
north
fence
side.
line. It's in the other
Yeah.
graphic.
Yeah, okay.
Mentioned it.
Just wanted to make sure. Well, just
Madam Mayor, and just a note, can you go back to the other slide? The spots near the train station, when the train station project was put in, there's a lot of gaps in those spots that make them overly big spots. And then there's like a spot you can't really park in if you park in between the lines. So they do need to be
Yeah.
restriped anyway. Just a thought.
Okay, anyone have any more questions before we take public comment on the parking component of this? Anthony, is there any public comment?
There's one from Alex Key, Robert's gonna.
Okay, and Jerry wants to speak too, so let's do the room comments first.
So the question online is related to the accessible spots and whether or not some can be converted to regular. And the recommendation is not to do that, and that allows for each of the different parking areas to have an accessible spot. They all have access to the different facilities. So for example, there's an accessible spot next to the train station.
They were actually required as part of the original.
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
By law.
And so it's also based on count. And as I think we need to do one double check, and I think Amit did the calculation. If we add more spots, we want to make sure that we don't have to add more accessible stalls.
Gary.
Jerry Lugers, that's exactly the topic I was on. Right now, I think we have 96 parking places. We're required by law to have 5 handicap spots. We have 9. And even if we increased 15, if we go up to 150 parking spots, we only need 6. So there are 3 parking spaces available. Don't have to repaint them. All you have to do is paint over, cover the sign, and they can be converted back if you need them. But if you look at the usage, the maximum I saw was 2 items, 2 handicap sites that were occupied during this study. Thank you.
Yeah.
So when the town center was done, they sort of talked about that, what was required based on the total number of spots. But when the architects looked at it, they said, well, if you're going to have 2 spots, you need some in front of City Hall to get into City Hall and use City Hall. But you also need some for the library that you've got over here. So they were distributed across the site, and that's how they got more.
That makes
than
sense.
Based on the population and the overall parking. space.
Overall parking.
Yeah,
It's
and I think
required
that-
by law.
Sense. It does.
Well, but we have two handicap spaces in some place.
Correct.
If we only need, if we're not required to have 2, then
And we could look at that as whether it's required, but it was looking at the facility use and where those spots were. So somebody who did
Kinda
need to
spread
use
out.
one didn't have to go entirely across campus to get to the facility they were trying to get to.
Okay, before we get to comments, is there any more public comment? Before I close public comment official parking? Okay, now to the comments on parking. Someone wanna? Do we give direction on this one and we'll move on to the next? Is that how you guys want us to flow? Okay. So anyone wanna start? On parking? Okay, go for it.
So, we've got a parking issue, we know it. We should maximize the number of parking spots. I think that's what staff is working. I appreciate the presentation. Should do these, and I don't know, I think we should do all of them. And I don't know that that means that we should do for the utility boxes, because if there is information that comes back that makes that more expensive, I think it makes much more sense to put that off and consider it in a later phase. But I also think that if we can reduce 1 or 2 of the handicap spots, those are the most open spots that aren't used. I mean, we're all coming in here all the time, and those spots, on occasion, there's one of them that's used, but it's very rare that two handicap spots are used where there's two together, and it's actually much more common for two charging spots to be used than two handicap spots. So I think if it's going to add us a couple spaces by converting a handicap spot, I think that.
Yeah. Just wanna.
I also think we should, you guys should think about the best way to phase it so that it's the least disruptive public. But I like the idea of restriping. I don't think everything has to be a large space, as long as we have some large spaces, because we need some.
Yeah, so I would say that if we do the 11 first, there's a couple of things I like about that. One, we find out, if that's enough, or can stage it out differently. The other thing the 11 first does is if we do a restripe over here where a bunch of them are going to get narrower, people who absolutely want to be close to the curb over here have more spots, but the other people who want wider spaces get them in the 11. So we offer the 11 first. Those are all the wider spots. And then if we want to give the narrower ones more space, then I think we provided an equivalent location for those people that are used to the wider spots. The other thing too is a couple things just to make sure we're thinking about our vendors and our providers, because they're like the gardening guy goes to the spot that would now be the two spots over here. So if those are filled with cars, then where does he go? Because he parks over here on the side. The FedEx truck periodically stands in front of the two spots that are in front of the city hall, and nobody can park behind him. So there might be some traffic flow recommendations we can make to those groups, like do they come over here rather than front or something like that, where we end up doing a little more stuff. So just to think about how the flow works for people that work with us.
Through the mayor, I'd like to make a clarification as Eric and staff to clarify what I heard you say about the new 11 spaces, that you felt that they were going to be wider than the other ones that were going to narrow down. Did you?
Isn't that true? I thought those.
No, they're shown there at 8.5.
No, they're all going to be the same width.
They're all
Yeah,
8.5?
right. And so I think that for the SUVs and stuff, they could maybe park on the outer edge,
Yeah.
then rather than in the very middle. But honestly, staff seems to say that 8.5 width is a standard width. It doesn't have to be 9.
Right.
And for whatever reason, we made it all 9. And some of those existing parking spots, some are 9, some are smaller, right? That are there at the train station.
Yeah,
Not
there's
train-
some variants.
Train tracks, yeah. Anyway, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
good point.
clarify
Yeah,
that, so you.
okay, good.
you-
That is clarified.
I didn't misunderstand and you
Yeah,
didn't
right.
misunderstand.
I thought those were the wider. Yeah, I think that if you ask somebody, would you like to walk from a block and a half away or 2 blocks away or be here, they'd go for this plan over
Sure.
walking 2 blocks out.
Yeah.
Particularly when you see the baby carriages and everything go across the parking lot.
Yeah. You want to go next or should I go next? Okay. I'm in favor of all of this. I'm not a huge fan of restriping the curved part of the parking lot that serves the library, because I think that is mostly used by families. And that's where we'll see the Rivians and kids getting out of it. When they have caretakers taking them out, they need to open the doors way. And so I think of the parking lot, those are the ones that we need them to be wider, because that's serving the library. And so to me, getting one spot out of that, it doesn't feel worth it to me, given who that is serving.
I ask, since you brought our attention back to that.
Yeah.
Could you clarify, Mr. Avadia, on that? Are there 1, 2, 3 handicap spots, 2 on one end and 1 on the other end? In
Yeah,
that
so
array,
there's
in the curve here.
yeah, so there's 2 closest to the library,
Mm-hmm.
and then there is 1 closest to the council chambers.
So if we could,
And that you say the hatch zone that's next to that
That's the
handicap
walkway.
spot would be double utilized as the pedestrian access from the other side of the
Exactly,
street.
understand.
So if you take out that spot, there's a couple of downsides. Is you could take out the spot, but you still are going to want to have that,
Mhm.
potentially want that walkway. And secondarily, that moves the closest handicap stall to this room. And so when we say that only 2 are utilized at a time, they're utilized for different reasons, right? So if we say, well, at the front, visitors to the town center for the admin or building permits, PD, et cetera, utilize the ones at the front.
Okay. So,
The,
so a suggestion,
yeah.
could you just take one handicap spot away from the area that's the most curb? And because if you go further down, are there 2 handicap spots right there?
So there's additional handicap stalls at the backside of the library.
Uh-huh.
And we're not recommending restriping that. The other thing that we can look at is if you want to get rid of a stall, there's one over here in the back lot
Mhm.
that may be the least utilized. And my recommendation would be to take away something that is further away from active use.
Anyway, I just think, I agree with you to not reduce the size widths on that.
Right.
But if we can gain another spot, which is what we're doing.
Can I ask a clarifying question just on what you said about the handicap? So the assumption is that when people are accessing this room, they're parking on that side and not on this parking lot? Because this is closer?
Most often, that's, I mean,
Okay.
the front, it's hard to say where front is,
Yeah.
but that's the main lot.
Okay.
And so more people are used to coming into the town center. And so either when they're coming during business hours for town activity, for town business, they're usually using the front spots. When they're coming in for the library, they're going to want to park as close to the library as they can, whether that's the front or the back. And then if they're coming to a council meeting, the first one they're going to look at is that one.
I have a question based on what Jerry said, which is helpful. And it looks like we have 9 handicap spots. Those 9 are distributed on the curve. There's 1 and then there's 2. There's 2 over here. There's 2 at the front of the main building.
There's 1 here, 2 at the front.
1 over here?
Yeah.
There's 1 here, there's 1 next to the train station.
1 at the
Yeah.
train station.
Yeah, and so like I said, I mean, there's the code minimums,
Right.
and then there's
Fine,
trying to
so-
facilitate access to the different areas.
My question was, of all the multiple handicap spots, it looks like there's 2 areas where there's 2 next to each other, 1 in the front of the building and 1 on the curb. Is that correct?
And in the back of the library.
Oh, and in the back of the library,
here.
but you don't want to change the back of the library. Wonder how often those,
Probably more often than ours,
probably more often than,
in terms of the degree of
Ones in
patrons
the
that come
back
to
of
the
the
library.
library are used regularly, as well as the 2 that are closest to the library. Every time I do story time,
Yeah.
they're always filled, full with placards. So there are handicapped people that come to the story time or are using the library at that same time. 2 that are up here generally are not as used, but you need to have one here at least because a handicapped person needs short distances to where the heck they're going. So you can't just eliminate all of them that are, let's say, near there.
Why does there need to be one by the train station?
I think the one at
a
the
booming
train station
museum.
at the museum could go. That's rarely used.
When the train station was remodeled, the architect said one was required.
Oh,
We can certainly have another conversation with the building official. And again, it's a decision between what is code minimum and how do we make sure that patrons that are accessing our facilities can get to the different locations easily. And so if we take out, for example, if we take out the one by the train station, that means that the closest one is in the front of the town center. And the route for that is cross the parking lot, take the sidewalk along the building, cross the parking lot, main driveway to get there. So it's
Path of travel.
it's path of travel issues. And so, like I said, if you're asking me which is the easiest one to take out with least impacts, it's probably this one back here.
Yeah, Bill's turn.
So I agree with Stacy's comment. The should not have the number one, additional one site that is sitting over there closest to the library. That's, as she pointed out, that's where the kids are. And that's where people unpack their cars and bring up with the stroller. That they need. I would also, based on your comments, I just don't see that it's worth it. Pain and perhaps stress that we may in parking on top of the electrical boxes, additional cost to move electrical boxes. Oh, but if it's no cost, fine, but if it's going to be a cost, I wouldn't. So I'd take those two things out. Two items out. I'll support that. Not just everything.
Okay, so you guys said everything.
I changed my mind to what you were recommending about keeping curved spaces the same size, but if we could somehow find another spot someplace else.
I agree with Elizabeth. What you said about the curve and not adding that one spot by restriping the curve, I think I think we should do everything else. And I agree with what Bill said, which that means on the utility box investigating cost. And there's not a net additional cost to do it. If there is, we can add it later. With respect to the handicap zones, should take one of them out over here. That's easy to do. It seems like we've got more than are required, and we could take out another one, either the one next to the train station, although maybe that's required. So if that's required, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen both the handicap spots in front of the building taken. They probably have been, but I haven't seen it.
It's
I've
not a
seen
routine
one.
thing, but it does occur.
I've seen
See,
it.
again, I just
But
want
it's-
to,
time.
But
I just
Well,
want to make
hold
a
on, let's let
comment.
Elizabeth.
there's a
Wait, hold on,
requirement. We
guys.
should
Yeah, I know.
comply with the
I know.
requirement. We don't have to
Everyone's
have-
talking over.
Grandma's.
I know.
Guys like me.
Conceptually,
I
the
always
reason
use
is
the spot.
if you have a building that has activity in it, and when the museum, starts, so we remodeled this train station to become a museum, and so there's going to be activity. There is a requirement that you have to give handicap access. The reason we have so many handicap places is that we have so many different venues here on
Right.
our little plot of ground. And there's all this activity, and so we have to accommodate that. And just rip them all out. The easiest would be one out there, and I think that's it. Done. Spot. We don't need to reduce the width of curve. This is good. Let's go on. I
The other thing
approve.
too is that we're adding spots,
Lot of spots.
which is,
Mhm.
I mean,
The 11, yeah.
yeah, right. The 11 is for me,
Big
it's
deal.
like doing the 11 is really critical to the whole experience on the site.
I don't know how our courtyard's going to function. We're just kind of.
But also the proximity of those 11 is very critical because that pulls the traffic back to the library where the traffic really is.
Well, when we had the issues with regards to people parking down on Maple, when we started doing backwards. Okay, at that time, the number of people that come to story time and several of the activities up there got reduced. And so I think it's necessary that we add some spaces, but I don't think the problem that we're seeing today, number of people coming to this type of activities, people figured out that, hey, you know what? Well, if I can't park down on Maple, or I'm not gonna go to the park and park because
Too far.
half-mile walk,
Right.
okay, with a stroller kid. So they chose not to come to these things. So I don't think the problem that we had, that we have today. Not saying don't do this, but I just want to point that out. I don't believe we have the same problem that we had. That's what I see, because I am here and I'm over there and I go through the park a lot of times on my bike. Parking lot here, on my bike, and spaces are open. Not giving you personal perspective, which is based on facts.
Okay, so I think we have a consensus.
Okay, can I repeat what I heard?
Yeah.
Just to make
Great.
sure I got it straight?
Okay.
Okay, so number one is add parking where the mulch area is and restripe that area to accommodate the pathway across, as well as many stalls as we can fit on that side. Keep the parking in front of the civic court as it is without modifying it. The one tree area that we removed across from the library, add that.
Right.
Okay. I think I heard restripe and try and get the spot next to the train station if we can. On this side, handicap change, or sorry, the accessible stall, we're going to consult with the building official to make sure we can. If we can, we'll take care of that. We would put the 2 stalls along the driveway in between the trees and consult with the utility companies about that location next to Ashfield to see if it's possible to put the stall there.
Fantastic. You got it.
All right. That's
Great.
good.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so let's move on
Okay.
to the,
Now the
Yes.
fun one.
And we don't need a motion on that, right?
No, just direct.
No.
All right, good.
Okay. All right, so now the second study that was done was taking a look at providing a walking path along Station Lane between the town center and Watkins Avenue to try and create a safe, convenient, and accessible walking path, which could encourage parking and access between here and the park. Maintain context sensitivity and try and reduce the level of stress for pedestrians, which are right now walking in the middle of the street. Concerns that we have, I think everybody's aware, it's constrained right of way. There's vegetation along the trackside. The property line in there is not that far behind the edge of the roadway. Crossing of Watkins Avenue is a challenge. And there are some utility constraints with the utility poles on the trackside, hydrants and other things that are located in various spots that we have to work around. And I think I wrote Watkins Crossing twice, so I apologize for that. And then particularly as we get towards Watkins, the visibility of pedestrians. So these are just images. You have them in the presentation pack ahead of you just to kind of remind folks what Dinkelspiel Station Lane looks like. So this is a view looking from Maple Avenue down towards Watkins. And you can see that that first tree is probably about 6 feet away from the edge of the road. The next one is probably about 4 to 5 feet away. On the left side is all of the vegetation, trees, shrubs, et cetera, on the track side. The fencing for the track, separating the tracks from the town property ends just after the courtyard. And so there is no fencing behind that shrubbery, just for purposes. I think I went the wrong way. So as we continue down down Station Lane, you can see that the right of way on the side there is fairly clear. That's why it's being used for parking. And then here, this is, sorry, I'm keep hitting the wrong direction. So this here is right at Walnut. Again, the right side is fairly clear. There's the stump there that looks like it's in violation of our ordinance. But then on the left side, you'll see the utility pole that's right there at the edge of the roadway. This here is looking backwards towards Walnut from the next property up. The tree looks like it's far enough away that we can, I'm going to say it's within the tree protection zone, but we can probably still do something with regards to putting in a pedestrian facility without hopefully taking out the tree. This again is that continuation of now looking from Walnut towards Watkins. And you can see on the left-hand side, there's a large tree there that's leaning over. And on the right side, there's a tree that's bunched up near the edge of the road. Here, as we get closer to Watkins, there are large redwoods that are bunched up close to the roadway. And then as we get closer to Watkins, that far tree, I think, was just recently removed. It was dead and was pulled down. And then this here is looking at the intersection, looking eastward at Watkins with the crossing. And this is looking the other direction there. And then this is from the other side of the tracks. Unfortunately, on Google, they kind of blur the image there. But the intent is really to say that as you come up and over, the fencing and everything right there at the tracks is a hindrance to visibility. And so if you're going to pull pedestrians on the track side, they're not going to be very visible to oncoming traffic. And then this one here is just, I think there was an analysis done before that we can't really put a walkway on the opposite side of the street. There's not sufficient room. This is Watkins looking towards the tracks from near the park. So this is looking westward along Watkins towards the tracks. Okay. So did a few analyses. And so this first alternative is looking at putting a 5-foot wide walking path between Maple and Watkins, adding crossing enhancements at the different intersections. And this will require to remove potentially up to 12 trees. That depends on how much we're going to be impacting roots and whatnot. Not all of those trees are heritage trees, but as you saw in the imagery, there are some large heritage trees. So I'm not going to say we're not going to have to pull those out. But that's alternative number one. This would lose all of that parking along the street to accommodate a pedestrian walkway. And the estimated cost for design and construction is just over $200,000. We have much more than we've allocated a lot more than that in our current budget to allow for it. The second alternative is if you wanted to try and keep some parking next to the town center and provide a walkway on that second block, we're still going to be removing a lot of the trees along that edge. It's a little cheaper because you're doing less work down at the and near the town center. But the downside of that is that you're not really providing a full walking path, meeting the objective of getting people from the town center towards the park. And then we did take a look at potentially doing something along the track side. It is a constrained right of way all across. Though we're not going to be taking out trees if we just try and do the walkway on the track side. There's a large impact to loss of screening, sound buffering due to the vegetation as we clear that area to put in the walkway. And that does include not just shrubbery, but there are some heritage trees back there. We would have to do a full survey to see what that impact is. We didn't do that. There is no fencing along the majority of that. And the consequence of removing some vegetation is that we would likely have to put some sort of protective barrier between pedestrians and the rail tracks, and that would require coordination with Caltrain in terms of, well, where is something going to be put and how do we deal with that? Do we need to actually put that a little bit on their property to accommodate the walkway? I showed you the image of the utility pole, so we'd have to figure out how to get pedestrians around that. And theoretically, we could maybe put it around the backside, but that again requires that coordination with the utility company or with Caltrain. And then another concern is if you have people on that side, it's not really the safest place to cross Watkins. And there's a challenge if you have people on one side to get them to go backwards to cross the street in a safer location. And so we looked at that, and ultimately the recommendation is to go forward with alternative one, which provides for, say, the easiest, most direct pathway for pedestrians. It gives them the comfort of not being next to the train tracks after you remove the vegetation, understanding that there is some impacts to the trees and stuff along that side of the road. And so again, the overall cost of that is somewhere around 200,000. Just want to make sure. So with that, answer questions. I know there's a whole bunch of them, and then you can go to public comment.
I'm going to start with a question first. When I was talking to George, I had asked if the road could kind of move to accommodate trees and a walking path, and you used a word called jogging the road. And I was wondering if you could explain that to a larger group of what that is and what is that an option?
I'd already talked to Robert about
Yeah,
it, so he's.
please, Robert.
So I think
Somebody.
if you look at this image, this is probably an illustrative example of where that theoretically could be possible. And there'd be more analysis needed. This is just a preliminary conceptual level. But the idea theoretically would be to take that left edge of the road and shift it over by a couple of feet or so. And the likelihood is that that would be after Walnut, because you have the utility pole right at Walnut and you can't shift the road any closer to it. So with that shift, it may allow for some additional room on the right side of the roadway. The question is with the proximity of those large, I think those are redwoods right there, and how they've already uplifted the roadway or the adjacent area of the roadway, the fencing and everything, is whether or not you'd be saving them as you try and do that. And so it's really a matter of, we can certainly take a closer look at it, but intuitively, I think with the fact that we're going to have to dig out to put something in, we're going to be impacting the roots of those trees.
Okay, Bill.
Been a traffic study on traffic quantity is, and I asked that is, I walk down that street a lot when I'm coming here. I ride my bike down that street. I'm riding my bike over here. Spoken to several parents who have their kids that go down here, and got a letter from Alex Kay also pointing out that really the traffic on that street is not very high, and questioning whether or not we really all other than have the crossing on Watkins, which I brought up probably.
I'm sorry. So you're saying that are you saying the number of pedestrians are not high, or the vehicle count?
Vehicle count. Is there really a need to spend 200 and some odd $1,000? Because you have an occasional car that goes down there. I've never seen, there are two cars going different. Normally, the street is exactly as you're showing it with no cars.
I can probably address some of that before. while they look for some count numbers if we have them. You're trying to solve two issues. One of them is the crossing that we've been talking about for a while. And the reality is, we don't have to do anything on that street. That is an option. That's an alternative. You don't have to add a crosswalk. You don't have to add a pedestrian facilities to get back and forth to the park.
Well, I think you need the crosswalk, because I've pointed out several times, that smaller kids can't see over the thing. Like I want to see not the crosswalk on Watkins.
Correct.
What I'm talking
So
about.
that's
But
an option.
walking down that street is not a hazard.
Let George
Correct.
finish.
So you could just put in the crosswalk. But as the town center develops programs and we kind of connect to the park, one of the things we talked about was trying to create that path of travel, safe path of travel back and forth from the town center to the park. And so if we don't do anything, you're right, they're going to walk down the middle of the street and there's not a lot of cars and it's safe in most cases, but it's not an ADA approved path of travel. And that's kind of what we're trying to create. We don't have to though. It's an option.
Well, I just don't
Martin,
think
with
there'd be
comments?
that many. I just don't think that many. And it's mostly the people that walk from here to there are
Really?
students from
Yeah.
this area.
I
Wait,
think
you-
And they're
we're-
gonna
Eric
walk down
has
the
his
middle of
hand
the
up.
road.
Bill,
Are
we're
we,
in
are we on
questions.
questions still?
We're in questions,
All right.
Bill. All
So
right, so Eric.
All right, so did we look at one-way options?
We have the capacity to do that. It's available in the study or in the agreement that we have. We kind of held off on that because there is a concern as to how disruptive that's going to be to everybody and which direction we would go.
Well,
And say, we have the capacity within our study to do it. And we wanted to bring these options before we looked at really constraining that roadway. Because if you look at where you're going to be, where the potential is for causing the most angst to our residents and accessing here at the town center, that's probably going to be, it's a policy call in terms of where you want to feel that pressure.
well, access versus egress is, so I'm not on this road a lot, but every time I've been on this road, including the other day when I came here to just go through it one more time, I used to go down that lot when we were on the planning commission for the house on the corner. Every time cars have come in both ways, and it goes back to the idea of what time of the day it is. So the only thing I would say is the thing I don't like about,
It's just questions
yeah,
time.
okay, well, then I'll come back for comments on later. I could make it a question, but I'll wait.
We've flirted with this
At the
before.
end, your comment, you say, don't you think so?
Yeah, I know, that's what I was gonna do.
What does everyone think about this comment? All right,
I have a question.
yes.
Okay. Do you think it's really necessary for us to work on this project at this time in light of us being able to add more parking spaces here town center?
Say, from the, you say, as a council, you choose the policy direction and follow that. But it is good practice to provide a safe and accessible path between our heavily used facilities. And so that's one of the reasons why the council brought this forward in terms of the analysis to begin with, is because there's a desire to provide for a safe, accessible pathway
I have a follow-up
between
question.
here and the park.
Stan, follow-up question. In reality, do we really believe that people are going to walk a half a mile between the park and here on a regular basis? Just because?
I'm going to say it's not a just because. The people that live here go to school at Encinal. And so if we want them to be able to walk between home and school, that is number one. Number two is our residents do it now. They do walk in the middle of the roadway to get from here to the park. You saw the street view image. When I went out there this afternoon, there was a family carrying their little kid walking from the library to the park.
Okay,
So-
I have a follow-up comment after that. But I'll
Does
save
anyone
it.
else have any Questions? Public comment. Okay, public
So,
comment.
there's a couple of public comments Anthony can read.
Is it required that the walking path be a minimum of 5 feet throughout, or can it shrink in some areas to accommodate trees?
Any more public comment?
The next one is also from Alex Key. It's more of a comment. It says, creating the crosswalk is most important, though I still to lose trees as a result.
Can you answer that one question? I think question of could we shift the width of the path?
The standard pathway is 5 feet. There are allowances for some minor restrictions down to about 4, I believe, in certain, to allow for certain constraints. It's unclear at this point in time without doing a topographical survey as to whether or not that would be enough to save a tree.
Okay, well, is there any other public comment? Oh, the chief has a comment.
So I travel it all the time. I walk it all the time. I see the interactions and I respectfully disagree. There is a regular flow of traffic on that road.
Right.
There is a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of parents with strollers. To the back to traffic, we just deployed our safe walking signs out there because I consistently stop and say, ma'am, you've got to go on the other side. When there's 2 cars traveling together, there's nowhere for pedestrians to go. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I think it makes total sense to make it one way from south going north. You're going to mitigate the impact of the traffic safety concerns we have at that intersection for traffic turning across the tracks. We're also encouraging residents to come through the town center to go to Fair Oaks, to use the light, to not turn right on ECR. So I would consider that you should look at that. It's already kind of an alleyway. It's not really a 2-way road. It's used all the time to egress to the park and back. And I think, to me, I was just sitting over there. I don't get thoughts very often. Makes sense to me to make that a one-way. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of impact to the residents there. You're going to improve safety. You're going to want them to turn and go towards Fair Oaks anyway to get out to ECR. I think it makes sense.
Okay, the chief comment. Okay, any other public comments online or in the room? Okay, we're closing public comments. So let's start with comments. Eric can go first.
Like the chief said, that's exactly the direction I thought would be the best because it doesn't stop any of the flow over here. It directs the traffic to better exit locations. And it also eliminates what I think is a dangerous left turn at the end of towards Watkins because people are going to come out there and they want to go left. That's not a good idea. It also makes it so that the traffic that comes in here is be slowed down because the road's going to be narrow and the space is going to be good and we don't knock out any trees. So I would highly recommend that approach.
Can I ask a quick process question before continue the comments? So if we wanted to move forward with this, how far would this be? Because you have the whole budget for construction and design, but the design would come back to us for approval. Yes. Okay. Just some clarity on that. Okay. Bill.
I said, let me rephrase. It's at the pleasure of the council. If you give us clear direction that you want to see X, then we can move forward with the design, bring back the design for your approval, and we can go out to bid and go to construction. If you want further analysis, whether that's to do the one-way analysis, which we have in our budget currently with TJKM, or if you want to go that second step of doing a topographic survey and a more detailed conceptual level of design to see, well, exactly this tree and that tree, and if we neck this down this way, we might be able to save that one. We can get a proposal from them to do the design for the full thing, including those steps and coming back to the council. I think that there's going to be some significant public input needed for the one-way analysis, if that's the route that you would like to see.
Okay. Okay. Bill.
I support the south to north one-way. I think it's a great suggestion. the comment that Eric made, that people going north to south, turning left is, even though now we have the quad gates, but when we didn't, it was a dangerous turn, even though we never really had an accident there. Fortunate. I've personally gone out there before we had the quad gates, and, you know, sometimes you don't see the train coming, especially at night. So can't see anybody out there because there's no street lights. Support fully the south to north one-way street, and I think we should look at that, come back with a solution.
I think, number one, whatever we do, we need to do it with the concept that it's a long-term.
Right.
We shouldn't just do something here because I think that I agree with that, which is it's very hard to get people in a large group to walk from the park to the town center in order to use the town center facilities. I just don't think, I mean, we'll have a few people do it, but like we talked about having employees park there, it's not going to happen. It's a pipe dream. That's what I think. I think that I don't think that the oleander screening on the track side is all that important. If you took that out, you could put in other screening next to whatever we put in, but there is a telephone pole right there. So it's not an easy, but I do think what we do, we have to do long-term. The comments that have been made about, the chief made and Eric made about it being one way, south to north. Actually, I think that south to north is the only possible way you could do it.
Right.
North to south would make zero sense.
Right, I agree.
And I'd like to know what the neighbors think about that. That's not a bad idea. I really like the idea of taking out the oleanders, but the telephone pole makes it not all that attractive. You can't move the road over. That's
about 3 feet. There's about 3 feet.
Okay, the final comment I'll make is, I think that the worst thing we could do is to take out the 6 parking spots when we're really working hard to find more parking around here. And so I'm totally opposed to what was alternative. I just don't the right thing. I think the one-way solution is a much better solution if we're not going to find alternative. And finally, we absolutely have to put a crosswalk across Watkins.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that. And if you did it one way, you'd get rid of that awful left turn from Dinkelspiel onto Watkins, but you still need a crosswalk on the west side so that people can get a crosswalk.
Okay, my turn now. Well, a lot has been said since I wanted to say something after my question, because, and I will follow on with my other council colleagues, because I agree that the crosswalk has to be installed and on Watkins before the train tracks. So that's really critical. The one way is a great solution, and it will solve a lot of problems with the width of 2 cars and everything. There was something that was said by Robert Ovadia about taking down the landscaping and then to the part where the fence is at the train tracks, but then there's a portion where there's no fence? Are you
Most of it
telling me
doesn't
that there
have-
is no fencing?
Most of it doesn't have any fencing.
That is a safety issue. That's an incredible safety issue that we need to address. We need Caltrains address it and put up a along our border. That is something that we are being derelict in because it's a safety issue. The other thing is, you were saying that, well, Kids walk there to go to school, to Encinal, okay, and you need to give them a safe place to walk. Come down Alejandra, see how many kids are biking, walking with their gaggle of parents on that street. There is no safe place to walk. There's no easement, and sometimes there's landscaping right up to the edge of the road that you cannot be walking on that side of the road without having to go into the lane. And the width is barely enough for 2 cars. So don't give me that excuse that that's a reason that we have to make this safer. Because there are many other little streets and avenues and lanes in Atherton where the exact same situation is in effect. So sorry I got a little heated, but it just kind of made me upset because the rationale sounds great. Oh yeah, it's been the way this is for years and years, but not having fencing along the train tracks, I think is a real liability.
Okay. So it sounds like there's consensus on investigating doing, all four people have all said yes. I also would be in favor of doing a graphical study. I think all of us want to preserve those trees. I think there is absolutely have a dedicated path between the town center and the park. We as policy have had in all of our marketing to use the park as our overflow parking lot. We need to provide a safe way to get between those locations. And I think if we're going to have a crosswalk, which there's clear consensus that we need a crosswalk, it has to go into a path or else people aren't going to use it. They're going to walk on the wrong side of the road. So I think there's going to be we're serving a lot of kids with the library and the library services, and a lot of families that I know have just stopped coming to the story times because parking's so annoying. But I think maybe we would see an increase and people would be using our new playground in the park, and there's a beautiful potential. This could be a very nice improvement of usage of all of these services if we have an accessible path for people. So I think I would love to understand the options for jogging the road so that we could preserve as many trees as we can, and by shifting the road over to have the path on the resident side instead of the Caltrain side. So my views, let's do both and see what our options are.
Is there support for both or just?
Okay. Can I give a suggestion in terms of what I'm hearing, and maybe you can accept it as direction or provide additional feedback? So we can do the one-way analysis to see what that would look like. And in addition to that, do the topographic survey of as much space as we can, including getting behind some of the oleanders and see where and what size the different trees are on that side of the roadway are, as well as on the right side, and develop some additional more detailed concepts that include either shifting the alignment where we can narrow the walkway if we keep it as a two-way, if we look at it as one way, which is the better direction. If it happens to be from south to north, the parking then would likely end up being on the track side because that's the direction the cars would be coming, right? Because you're not going to want them on the other side of the road. And so we can look at what those options are and how wide a space can accommodate for pedestrians and or maybe a joint use pathway with maybe a asphalt curb or something like that, separating the cars from the pedestrians. And so that will get a proposal from TJKM, and if we can, we'll try and bring it back for review and approval at your July meeting.
The proposal.
The
not the
proposal.
Design.
The proposal.
So I have one comment on that comment. If you put the parking on the right and it's being used primarily by library people, they're going to be open the door, getting kids out there and then walking across the street. That doesn't sound viable at all to me.
Said the right.
Yeah.
So like I say, if you're driving, you generally park on the right.
Yeah, if you're coming from
If you're coming
Watkins to
from
town.
Watkins to the town
be on the
center,
right
which is the
side.
south to north, which is what I heard.
Yeah.
The parking would be on the right side of the road.
Well,
It
on a
doesn't
one-way
have to
street,
be.
it doesn't matter.
One more time?
On a one-way street, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Then we'd have to,
It doesn't matter which side of the
Okay.
street it's, but it's safer for everybody to be getting out of the car on the left side where the walking path is and walking down to the library or walking to the crosswalk on that one side. And so one way doesn't make any difference which side you park on. I mean, in San Francisco, that's always the case, is that you're walking up a one-way street and you got parking on both sides of the one-way street.
You're correct.
Same in Palo Alto. So all we got to
Okay.
do is make sure there's a barrier there of some type to make sure that they're feeling safe.
How do you put parking and the walking path same side?
Because we got enough space now with only.
You just have to create
Wanna
that
see a
barrier between
design.
the,
The,
Have to look at,
yeah, the
Yeah.
parking would be, the walking would be closer to the houses
correct.
and the parking would be
Yeah.
closer to the,
Well, the
Right.
parking's next to the houses now, then people during the weekend using the homes or the garage there and other things, parking is gonna have a tendency to want to be staying on that side of the street anyway. So anyway, your
So-
study will look at that.
That'll
Yeah.
be the study. Cool. Okay, so
Okay.
Fair
So
consent.
we'll come back with a proposal from TJ Cam for
Do that work.
further analysis.
Yes. But definitely with a side, or the crosswalk.
Yeah, the crosswalk's already included in the estimates, so.
okay. Anyone have any disagreement with what Robert said? Okay, great. Staff direction. All right, so then our next item on the agenda is to talk about the traffic study for Watkins and Fair Oaks Lane intersections with Middlefield. That is back to Robert.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Give me a second while I pull up the presentation. I lost my Zoom meeting.
Transportation.
Oh,
that was last.
okay.
Claudia.
Excellent. All right, so this here's, so thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this presentation is a discussion of the preliminary analysis warrant study for Middlefield Road, particularly focusing at the Watkins Avenue and the Fair Oaks Lane / Palmer intersection with Middlefield. And so this here is just a general vicinity map showing the two intersections, 1 and 2. We did an analysis to see what type of traffic control devices would be appropriate at each of the intersections. And that includes looking at full signalization with a traffic signal, installation of a high-intensity activated crosswalk, which is a hawk beacon. I think you're all familiar with those on El Camino Real, where pedestrian hits the button, it turns the light red for the main roadway so that folks can cross the street. And then the rectangular rapid flashing beacons are similar to what we have here at Fair Oaks, where you hit the button and the strobe lights warn oncoming traffic of pedestrian activity. And so we did the analysis to see what would be appropriate. And so there was a data collection done on March 10th, looking at basically 7 approaches on Middlefield at the intersection. So 3 at Watkins, it's the T intersection. So the north-south directions on Middlefield and the eastbound leg of Watkins, as well as the 4 legs at Fair Oaks Palmer. Included in that was a 24-hour vehicular count. So they had a counting device counting traffic, and then 7 hours of turning movement counts, as well as bike and pedestrian activity, measuring bike and pedestrian activity. And so this here is just a close-up image of the Watkins intersection to remind of the configuration, where we have 1 lane in each direction on Middlefield, a left turn lane onto Watkins, and then 1 westbound lane and then 1 eastbound lane, which kind of splits as you approach the intersection at the T. 1 to go right and left. I think we've all experienced trying to get through that intersection at the various times of day, and particularly during commute hour, trying to get from Watkins onto Middlefield is not the easiest thing in the world. And so there are 9 different warrant analyses that are or could be done to validate the potential of putting in a traffic signal and whether or not you can or should do that. And so the first one is basically taking a look at all of the volumes on the roadway over that 24-hour period and looking at if 8 hours exceed certain thresholds. And so in this case, what it is that on the main roadway, you'd be looking at a minimum of 500 cars going on Middlefield, both directions, and on the side street, having a leg that exceeds 150. So they look at that both at 100% of that number and 80% of that number. The second part of that is not just looking at volumes, but looking at delay that's caused on the side street and trying to get from that side street onto the main road. And again, you're looking at that over an 8-hour period. The second warrant says, okay, well, if you're not going to be able to meet things over an 8-hour period, over a constrained 4-hour period, taking a look at, again, those volume numbers and see how difficult it is for that side street to get through that intersection. Then constraining that even further is that, well, if you're not meeting those, there's a third warrant that just takes a look at your highest demand hour and what that looks like. And then the next one is related to pedestrian volumes. Do you have a heavy enough pedestrian volume that there's a significant delay to pedestrians for crossing the street? The fifth one is related to a school crossing, which this is not. And then a coordinated traffic signal system is where you want to platoon vehicles, and this is regarding spacing of signals about 1,000 feet apart or so to help with car platooning. And with the proximity of the signals that we have, this doesn't apply with our intersection as well. Number 7 is related to doing the crash analysis, how many vehicular accidents you have at the intersection, and would a traffic signal help mitigate that traffic accident history. And then there may be other traffic-related justifications to encourage organized traffic flow, which would be number 8. And then number 9 is related to proximity to a rail crossing and trying to control traffic coordinated with the rail crossing, which again doesn't apply here. And so as they took a look at these individual warrants, we actually met 3 different warrants. You only need to meet 1, but we met 3. And so those include looking at that 8-hour volume. We've met that 100% 8-hour volume threshold for condition 1B, and then 100% for that condition 1A, which is really related to, I think I said it before, we've all experienced trying to get from Watkins onto Middlefield, and it is really difficult during certain periods of time. Yes,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
In your little graphic here of the picture, go back to that, you see that Middlefield on the west end, north end, has that yellow oval in it.
I'm sorry, just give me a second to get to the, is it this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're sitting here on Watkins wanting to make a left-hand turn, and the traffic starts to clear on Middlefield coming from the Marsh Road stoplight, that starts to clear, but there's still a lot of traffic coming up from the other side. Can you just sneak your way over clearly and come into that yellow holding section safely, and then wait until there's a break and then go on it to the.
Let me modify the
isn't
question.
that-
Could there be a lane stop created just like you have where Alejandra comes in to El Camino Real? And you
Oh,
right? That's what
no,
you're
that's not
asking?
what I'm asking. No,
Okay, I don't understand.
there's like a safe spot that's,
Asking
that's surrounded by the yellow
Middle lane.
The
striping.
merge lane.
Okay, so.
Yeah, and then converge in. Yeah.
We can get into more details later, but I'll try and answer
legal?
Councilmember Lewis's question. Is that technically that is a median island. And so right now, the answer to your question is no.
But it's
So-
not an island. It's a flat spot.
It
Where
is
I can-
striped as a median
Not allowed to
island
do that.
with, I think, what is the term, you know the term double-double?
No. It's a double.
Double-double. Double
But
yellow
in
line, I believe.
Alejandra and El Camino, you have
You have a
median.
merge lane.
A merge lane.
And so.
An eyebrow. kind of
So to answer that question is that further analysis as we get into if we move forward with the design of something here, we can take a look at whether or not there's enough room to accommodate that. But however, there's still difficulty just even getting across that first piece.
True, true.
And I believe that island narrows. I'd have to take another
It does.
look.
It kind of teardrops.
It
as
teardrops, and
yeah,
so
which is fine.
that
because you
space
you
is
don't
gonna end up
drive in
being-
You don't drive in it.
Yeah.
Get in there and you just stop with your little blinker going right. And then somebody coming up the road, they're very nice and they'll let you in.
We aren't only talking about traffic study for light on those.
I was just wondering, it was just, I just had to.
Okay.
question.
That's a good question. We
No,
are not
it-
doing
the-
comments
the-
yet, though, guys.
No,
We're hearing
I
a
asked a
presentation.
No, she did
I
ask a
said,
question.
is it
so-
legal?
Okay, so again, highlights, we met the 4-hour vehicular volume threshold as well, and the peak hour volume. And so illustrative, not really intended to dive too deep, but you see the red is the no and the Y is the yes. And that's where they started counting and saying, well, did we meet that threshold? So that first section is that 100% threshold related to the 8 hours. And though on Middlefield, we met the volume for all of it, we only met 4 hours worth on Watkins. And so we didn't meet the 8 hours at the 100% of the volume numbers. But then there's a column further out, which looks at the 80% of that number. And we met more than 8 hours worth. And so we met that threshold. And then similarly for condition B, we met more than 4 hours on condition B. And then this is just taking a look at just illustrative that we did do turning movement counts and pedestrian counts. And the pedestrian counts during the 8 hour, the window that they took were extremely low. And it's not saying that there aren't pedestrians. That day that they took the measurements, the pedestrian use over that period of time was not there.
Was it on periods of time that you?
So this here is illustrative of the peak hours from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and from 2 to 6. And so during the, like I say, in any of those periods of times, the pedestrian counts were like 2 or 1 or 2. And so it wasn't really heavy during those periods of time.
Do you know what it was like? Like it's March.
It was a sunny day.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that when the work was done, we were cognizant to pick after the work on Middlefield at Marsh was complete, so that didn't interfere with the traffic counts. And so, I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. And so we were cognizant of, well, if we do it now, that's going to be impacted by that construction activity. And so we had to pick a time period that was not impacted by that. And then, so here is another illustration of that warrant one kind of simplified, indicating the hours at which we met, didn't meet those warrants. And then item number 2, which is at 4 hours, they don't have to be 4 consecutive hours. It's just 4 hours during the day. And so the warrants were met at 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and 5. And then for warrant C, it met that peak hour warrant as well. Looking at the Fair Oaks Palmer, again, it met those same 3 warrants. And so really it's, I'm going to say, in terms of warranted, yes, the signals are warranted. It's really a policy call on whether or not they're desired and in which order. And so I'm just going to speed through these. I don't say we met the warrants. We have the data. If you have questions, we're happy to answer them. And then here I'm just trying to get through. And so for the high intensity activated crosswalks, this is just an illustration on how they operate. I think we're all familiar with it. In looking at the vehicular volumes for both the pedestrian volumes at the crossings, there were only a handful of folks when the analysis was done. And so it doesn't meet the warrants for the Hawk Beacon or really the rapid flashing beacon. So if you were wanting to put in a control device, the appropriate thing, which actually helps with all modes of travel, would be a traffic signal. And so the Transportation Bike and Ped Committee recommended moving forward with the next step of evaluation. And that really includes, this here is just a warrant analysis. It tells you you can, but really taking a look in terms of what the impacts of putting those signals in would be, and looking at how that signal would be coordinated with the rest of the corridor. And so the recommendation is to look at that sequentially and looking at, well, we have today's volume, do a projection for 5 years or so out and see what that volume would look like. Model that with Watkins, and then layer on top of that Fair Oaks, and see how operations happen and how they would potentially change by adding that second signal. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, and we are seeking feedback on how you would like to proceed with, how and if you would like to proceed with next steps.
So when you model out 5 years in the future or future traffic, are you guys looking at all planned construction on Middle Park, the Black Campus? Nat Geo, like I assume that's part of it. You'll look at housing development.
I think that we can take a, I mean, the SRI study has information that TJKM can look at.
There's not just SRI.
It's also
There's
the
USGS. You know,
There's just a lot.
Huge amount of commercial development.
Yeah. So
right across from Vintage Oaks, you know.
Zoom Middle.
I have a question. At Middlefield at the Linden Gates and that is hard for some member with would like to. It's in his name. I see trying out of Glenwood to get on the middle and from the gate, because it's a single lane to the gate.
That is part of our part 2 of our active transportation plan discussion where we're talking about intersections. Yes?
Yes, but I also think that isn't
That's
Glenwood,
part-
Linden, and Watkins ECR part of the Caltrain Environmental for High-Speed Rail for signalization?
Say that again?
The environmental mitigation for the, I think it's the electrification project and the full build out of their service
Caltrain.
for Caltrain includes mitigation related to putting in a signal at Glenwood and Glenwood at Middlefield,
Right.
and Watkins at El Camino.
That's when they hit a certain threshold
That's
of
correct.
volume of trains.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, radar.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone have any questions?
No question. I got comments, but no question.
Okay, let's open public comment on this item. Anyone online or in the room? Okay, comments. Who would like to go first? Eric had said he had comments, so he can go first.
I'll go.
Okay, Bill can go first.
Yeah, I think that the recommendation to start with Watkins recommendation is driven up that way. What we're talking about, no matter which way you're trying to turn, because that car, you don't necessarily have that same impact at Fair Oaks, although you have it. Support the station. Start it with Watkins. Possible station of a signal that will add.
I agree. I guarantee you that I'm the one person on this council that drives this more than anybody. And I'll tell you, as much as I never use Fair Oaks towards Middlefield ever. I mean, even when I leave here, I usually go around all the way to Fifth and down because it's too unreliable to turn left. But Watkins is just flat out dangerous. The only thing I would say that we want to make sure of is that we maybe overstate, keep the intersection open, do not block the intersection there, because one of the things that's sort of the mitigating aspect of the situation now is that people don't dare go out there unless they can get all the way in the lane. But if you get a light, everybody goes like, yeah, you know, get the yellow thing, I get stuck there. It's like what happens down at Costco, where everybody sort of sees the yellow as an opportunity to sort of stay out there in the lane. So not blocking that intersection, getting the feature that is there now replicated with the light would be.
Have a stacking eye.
The second, there's room to do that now, and nobody does it. And the reason they don't do it is because they don't think they're going to be allowed to. People are going to let them get in.
They always let me in.
Well, you're sweet. I'm telling you. The other thing too is that if you get a dump truck in that lane.
No dump trucks.
Yeah, well,
allowed.
but that's what happens.
Put a sign up there.
Only
that says no dump truck.
Teslas.
No, I know, but that's what it would block up a lot
Small
of
cars.
visibility. So, and that what happens now is that those trucks have to come out quickly, and they've got to get over there, and so we definitely.
Oh yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question? So obviously we're prioritizing Watkins. Would we also do the next step study for Fair Oaks, or are we
Yeah,
full stop?
so
on
the
that?
recommendation is the study will look at everything and layer it. So basically you have the today. This is what happens when you put the signal at Watkins today and in the future. And then this is what happens when you add Fair Oaks.
Okay.
And so it's not a one and then come back later. It's to do the full analysis. And it's a corridor analysis, meaning that we have to take a look at how the entire corridor works. TJKM helped us with a grant that we had a while back to reevaluate and adjust the signal timing along the corridor from Ringwood all the way to Marsh a few years back. And so basically this is taking that, adding in, updating the information and then adding in the new signals one at a time. Again, successive, showing this is the impacts and what things will look like with just doing Watkins. And then this is what the changes are when you add the other one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a light on Watkins will actually could reduce the traffic on Fair Oaks that wants to turn left because they got a light. So people who are trying to go left on Fair Oaks are trying to avoid the Watkins backup of people not being able to get out. So they come down to Fair Oaks and try to get over. If there's a light at Watkins, I bet you anything it affects the flow that goes down to Fair Oaks.
What is the cost of the light at Watkins?
This was just an analysis for.
But we don't have any idea what.
Well, we have in our
signal-
budget forecasted for next year $1 million.
We have $1 million in the budget.
Yeah.
In the plan. I know that.
Yeah.
But we not have any idea what the cost would be?
They're between 850 and $1 million.
Between 150.
850 and $1 million.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah.
So
let's
my
chat about it up.
my opinion is we should do Watkins.
Not at my house.
Yeah.
I'm not at all sure we should do Fair Oaks. I drive Fair Oaks all the time, and frankly, I don't have a problem. I mean, either right or left. Yes, you have to be a little bit patient, but there's a problem at Watkins. There,
So I think that the council already said that that's the priority, I think, but we want to see how everything would operate. Because we just want to make sure we're not making other things worse.
I think there's consensus in this one that we are through with the recommendation of the Transportation Committee. Does anyone
Unless we want.
got some side chatter? Oh, Bill wants to throw roundabouts. Let's do it.
I'd like to see a roundabout, I mean, why is the
can we
west side of town the only beneficiary?
All right, so do you need a motion or are we just gonna be direction?
This
Okay.
direction.
You're just
All
giving
right.
direction, but Madam Mayor, before you move on from this one, I just want to make sure with TJKM that we're talking about one weighing possibility of Station Lane. Councilmember Lane was talking about that people would end up using Watkins if that was signalized versus Fair Oaks. I want to be careful that we're not pushing traffic through the town center to get to one of those two lights.
It's exactly what we're doing.
So should that be part of the study?
Yeah, so I was just talking to him, is that's a complicating layer that would have to be thrown into the analysis
Very.
with and without the one way, what that would look like.
Say,
Sounds
local
fun.
traffic only.
Okay, so, okay, George, it's time. It's time for us to talk about your performance evaluation and your contract. Would you like to
I will
state
take
your
this
case?
one on. Thank you
Okay.
so much. As part of its annual review, the city council conducts a performance evaluation of the city manager, and it did so this year in accordance with past practice. Following the evaluations, the council found that the city manager had been performing outstandingly and was very pleased with his progress and performance. To that extent, the council wished to amend his employment contract to provide a 2.5% cost of living adjustment, which is commensurate with other employees. That would raise his existing salary from $294,973 to $302,347,000. The council also wished to give him a one-time $15,000 bonus for, again, excellent performance and retention. So the recommended action is that what was discussed during closed session is now memorialized, and we recommend that you approve it.
Public comment? Yeah, great. Okay, great. All right, we're closing public comment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Great.
Second.
Ooh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Woo, look at us.